So here, the unyielding spirit of Arunima Sinha, a tale of triumph against all odds. Imagine standing at the foot of the highest mountain, right, in the world, staring up at its towering peak. The icy wind here biting your skin, and knowing that the world believes you can't do it. Right now, imagine doing that with only one leg. This is the story of Arunima Sinha, an extraordinary woman whose courage, resilience, and sheer determination rewrote history. Her journey is not just about summiting Mount Everest. It's about defying expectation. Proving that the human spirit is indomitable and becoming a beacon of hope for millions. Right? How did a woman who once lay broken on a railway track rise to conquer the tallest peaks on every continent? This is the gripping saga of a warrior who refused to accept defeat. A tragic turning point, the train accident in 2011. Arunima Sinha, a promising volleyball player, was traveling by train when a horrifying event changed the course of her life forever. She was pushed from a moving train by robots, right, here leaving her grievously injured, and she lay on the railway tracks. Another train passed over her, right, crushing her left leg beyond repair. Right, so for many such an ordeal would be the end of her aspirations, but not for Arunima. She was rushed to the hospital where her leg had to be amputated to save her life. What could have been her downfall became the foundation of an extraordinary comeback story. Right, rising from the ashes, the birth of a mountaineer. So lying in the hospital bed, fighting immense pain and emotional turmoil, Arunima resolved to do something, unprecedented. Inspired by cricketer Yuvraj Singh, who had battled, cancer and returned to the sports, right, again. She decided she wouldn't let her disability define her. She set her sights on the ultimate challenge, right, climbing Mount Everest. Right, her journey to becoming a mountaineer, wasn't easy. She trained relentlessly at Nehru Institute of Mountaineering and Tata Steel Adventure Foundation, under the guidance of Vachendri Pal, the first Indian woman to scale Everest. Right, every step of her training was a battle, learning to balance with a prosthetics leg, right, enduring harsh weather conditions and building the mental strength to conquer adversity. Act she preserved with an unwavering spirit, fueled by her dream and a desire to prove that nothing is impossible. Right, conquering Everest, right, a historic feat. In 2013, 2 years after her tragic accident, Arunima embarked on her missions to summit Everest as part of the Tata Group sponsored Eco Everest expedition. Right, obviously the journey was here treacherous. Okay, freezing temperatures, right, life-threatening avalanches and oxygen deprivation. Okay, but she kept pushing forward, step by painful step. And then, on May 21, 2013, Arunima Sinha reached the summit. She became the first female, amputee to scale Mount Everest, sending a powerful message to the world that, disabilities do not define potential. Determination, grit, and refusal to surrender can overcome, even the greatest obstacles. Beyond Everest, an unstoppable force. Here, scaling Everest was, just the beginning for Arunima. She went on to, climb the highest peak on every continent, completing the prestigious, 7 summit challenges. Her achievements include here Mount Kilimanjaro, Africa, Mount Elbrus, Europe, Mount Kosciuszko, Australia, Mount Aconcagua, South America, Mount Denali, right, North America, Mount Vinson, Antarctica. Her relentless drive has earned her prestigious accolades, right, including here the Padma Shri Award, one of India's highest, civilian honors, and the Tenzing Norway highest mountaineer award. A legacy beyond, mountains. Here, Arunima's, mission extends beyond, climbing peak. She established a non-profit school for unprivileged and disabled children, right? Ensuring that here other facing, challenges like hers, receive education and opportunity, to carve their own destinies. She also, authored a book, Born Again on the Mountain, sharing the details of her journey to inspire others. Her words serve as a beacon of hope, proving that the most brutal hardships can give birth to the greatest strengths. A story that must be heard. Arunima Sinha's story is more than just an adventure. It's a lesson in perseverance and the limitless power of the human will. It's a reminder that no setback, is too great, no obstacles too high, no dream too impossible if one has the courage to fight for it. If this journey has moved you, share it, because stories like this deserve to reach and inspire millions. Let Arunima's triumph, be a wake up call to the world. Limitations are only in the mind, right? And the next point is, that a tragic accident, a life-changing moment that, forced a legend. There are moments in life, when everything changes, in an instant, when fate tastes, and individuals in the hard set, right? Ways possible for Arunima Sinha, that moments came in April 2011 in the form of a brutal, train accident, that could have ended her dreams, forever. Instead, it became the defining event, that forced her into one of the world's most inspiring figures. A tragic twist, of fact. Arunima Sinha was promising, national level volleyball player, right? Filled with, ambitious and aspirations, but on that, fateful day, as she, boarded a train bound for Delhi, she had no idea that a routine journey would become a nightmare, that would change the course of her life. While traveling, she was confronted by a group of ruthless robbers, right, who attempted to snatch her belongings, right? In an act of sheer, courage, she resisted, but her defiance, was met with merciless violence, right? So the robbers here, determined to overpower her, threw her off the moving train, right? She fell onto the railway track, right, gravely injured and, struggling for surviving. Then one of the most horrifying turns of event, another train rushed by, crushing her left leg. The impact was devastating. The fight for survival here, as she lay, wounded and helpless. Hours passed before she was discovered and rushed to a hospital. Obviously, her injuries were severe, with multiple fractures and legs so badly damaged that doctors had to, amputate it below the knee, in order to save her life. The pain was unbearable, but the emotional and psychological toll of what had just happened, was even greater. In a matter of moments, Arunima Sinha, had gone from a promising athlete to someone starting at an uncertain future, where the dreams she had nurtured seemed to collapse before her eyes. The days and weeks allowing the incident were a battle in themselves. Every surgery, every session of rehabilitations, brought a new set of hurdles, right? Learning to function with a prosthetic leg, right? Adjusting to a drastically, different physical reality, and most of all, coming to terms with the loss. But instead of, succumbing to despair, Arunima did something extraordinary. So the turning tragedy into triumph, while still in the hospital, that here Arunima made a decision that shocked everyone. So here she resolved to do something, no one had even attempted before. She would not just recover, but rise beyond limits, right? And her goal, to climb Mount Everest, I'm to say the highest peak in the world. Her inspiration came from the cricketer Yuvraj Singh, who had obviously battled cancer and returned to the sports with renewed strength, right? If he could conquer his obviously struggles, he could conquer Everest. Instead of allowing her circumstances to dictate her fate, she redefined her story. So here, forging the path of greatness, determining the pursue her dreams, Arunima embarked on rigorous mountaineering training, right? Enrolling in Nehru Institute of Mountaineering and obviously training at the Tata Steel Adventure Foundation under the legendary Bachendri Pal, the first Indian women to scale Everest, right? So every single day of training was a test of resilience, with a prosthetic limb that we call the leg, right? She had relearned balance and endured obviously grueling physical conditions and developed the mental fortitude necessary to survive one of the toughest challenges known to mankind. Her grit and perseverance became her defining strengths. She was no longer a victim of fate. She was a warrior. She was a warrior preparing for ultimate battle. The Everest expedition, a journey to obviously immortality, right? In 2013, just 2 years after losing her leg, Arunima set out on her mission to conquer Mount Everest, as part of the Tata Group sponsored Eco Everest expedition, right? So here the climb was treacherous, freezing temperatures, brutal winds and life-threatening obstacles, but step by painful steps, she kept pushing forward, never allowing obviously doubt to take hold. And then on May 21, 2013, Arunima Sinha did what the world thought was impossible, right? Here she stood atop Mount Everest, becoming the first female amputee to reach the summit, a moment of triumph that resonated across the globe. She had not just conquered mountain, she had conquered fate itself. So yeah.